All right, so I'm gonna make sure. Who here has heard of Billy the Kid? Hey. All right, and now we're gonna keep going. Who's heard of Lincoln? Yeah. Not just the president, but this location. Okay, we're good. Who's heard of Elvis? Presley. Okay, we got a couple. Blue shirt author. I own your books, but I'm gonna be watching you now. All right, I seriously like your writing, by the way. All right, I sidetracked that. Okay, we're gonna get back on track. Welcome to Lincoln. Yay. All right, this is what Rutherford B. Hayes called the most dangerous street in America. Rightly so, because we're about to go down the street. You're gonna see where 44 people were shot to death, 6 people lynched to death, 2 people stabbed to death, a man allegedly poisoned to death, an Old West duel between 2 guys having an actual gunfight on the main street happened here. And my favorite story, and probably the most gruesome story, the double hanging of one poor individual who's sentenced to death here, all happened here on the streets of Lincoln. You're going to walk in those steps and we're going to go right through them shortly. But as Billy the Kid told a reporter, over 200 men have been killed in Lincoln in the past couple years, but I did not kill all of them. You might want to write that down because it's true. All right, so before we get into a lot of the ruckus that happened in Lincoln itself, we're right on the edge. If you look at where that tree is kind of fenced in and the ground starts to slant down, starts to go downhill along this path, about 20 yards or so width, it's going to be where the old car cell, the pit jail used to be, right there into the ground. All right, if you think of the pit jail, famous people were incarcerated there like Jesse Evans, Billy the Kid, anyone else you can name pretty much that was a fighter in the Lincoln County War. They had some issues there along with lots of bad guys and some poor unfortunate souls. Starting in the 1880s with a man named Harriman who was drunk in town, irritated some people, got himself arrested. Turned out that with him on that same day, another guy by the name of Old One-Armed Joe Murphy. Anybody heard of One-Armed Joe Murphy? He didn't make much history. Other than he killed a guy named Stone here in town, made a lot of people agitated with that killing. So, while he's locked in this half jail, can we call it a half jail? We all agree? It's not really a good jail. All right, it's more just a building over a hole in the ground. So, while those guys are incarcerated there, people in town get to talking about Stone and they're aggravated about that killing. Also aggravated with the other man that's incarcerated with old One-Armed Joe Murphy. So they come in, get their way into the door, fire a few shots, shoot and kill those guys. They're found dead the next morning. So what does the town do? Are they angry about the injustice? Kind of. They start thinking and talking. Some of them think, well, maybe that deputy who was supposed to be guarding these guys ran into some bad decisions, so he's probably part of the murdering. So they promptly come in that evening, remove him from the pit jail, take him to the closest tree they could find and hang him to death. Right there, only steps away from the jail he was supposed to be guarding. Which is fine, because that's 3 murders in 2 days, right? What happens on day 3? They start thinking, well, there's still one witness left in that old pit jail, and he may have an open mouth that likes to talk about who was involved. So what do they come that 3rd night and do? That's right, give that man $1. They come and murder him. No markers left for that poor deputy who was killed. No gravestones for the outlaws who were not valiantly murdered and died here right in the pit jail. But it was located here. When you read about that location, you're looking at right what they could look at. If they were able to step outside at all, that's the view they were lucky to get, was those mountains behind us.
Did they excavate it? Have they?
It's never been explored other than covered over. It used to be a tourist attraction back long ago, and it eventually turned into a trash pit, which they pretty much covered in dirt. Might be worth investigating to this day. If someone wants to invest in that, I will help work on that, because there's got to be goodies in that, right? Surely they left something good. Maybe like a Billy the Kid doll that they carved out. That'd be awesome. We could sell those. But anyway, all right, so that's the pit jail. All right, we're having a good time?
Yeah.
All right, it ain't a question. I like to make sure you know, because if anyone asks you, how was that talk? You can say, well, we had a good time. It's factual, okay? All right, so from here we're going to move into town. We're going to get into some froggy and feisty killings there. We're going to get into the Horrels. And we're going to lead, of course, to that double hanging of William Wilson here. Okay, so that's our next step. Everybody still with us?
Yep.
All right, let's keep going.
Oh, she's still on. Yeah, I'm sure she's fine. You're about to have the line whittled down. I know, I feel bad. We should give her a heads up.
Well, probably more tickets she sold in a long time.
Oh, yeah.
What she should do is do little spiels she gathers all up and do it once. She's doing that spiel for every single person.
Yeah.
Like, you know, get it together and give us that, and that's taking all the time.
I think I said I'm already.
I'm a guy who's followed him since before he even knew me. I was just a bad word on the internet. I've always been a fan. We're lucky that we have people like him, people like Josh, all of y'all interested, leading the interest, keeping people thirsty for it, because otherwise it's history will die off. You don't want this to pass. Town of
Lincoln.
All right, you're still with me. All right. And everyone's heard of Elvis Presley? Okay. Aliens?
Oh,
All right, we're staying in New Mexico. Okay, just trying to keep it on theme. All right, as we know, you have over 50 people killed here right on the street. We're about to walk down, start with that pit jail and the deaths that happened there. We're going to move into the town of Lincoln and the feisty activities that happened here. Starting in late 1873 with a family that came from Texas by the name of the Horrells. Anybody ever heard of the Horrells?
Yeah.
All right, they were the first real Lincoln County war because they brought the war into town with their misbehavior. All right, in early December, actually the 1st of December, 1873, one of the Horrells named Ben Horrell is here with his buddy, Jack Gillum, and Dave Warner and some other friends, and they're drinking right here on Main Street, firing off their guns at every dog, cat, bottle they could see, just having a good old time. So when you mix guns and alcohol, bad things happen, all right? If you remember nothing else from today, guns and alcohol, bad things happen. So feel free to say it anytime I mention it, so I know you're awake still. All right, so they've done that. They're drinking, they're partying. Town Constable Martinez comes down, says, hey guys, we got to break it up from the middle of the street. Let's go somewhere else and continue this party. And so they do. They move off down towards the river, down that direction there, on a house really close to the river. Can't see it exactly right here because we have a beautiful museum blocking our view, but it's down there along the river. They're down there partying. It's a house where a few ladies are known to be friendly to men with money, and so they're continuing to drink and party in there. Constable Martinez and his buddies get a little irritated because, sure enough, they start shooting their guns off down yonder and causing trouble again. So Martinez deputizes what he says is 5 other men. Only 5, right? So that makes 6, right? So Constable Martinez pounds on that front door, hollers in, y'all need to come out. Dave Warner answers that door. What does Dave Warner see? He sees nothing but a lawman and a whole bunch of lawman's buddies who are well armed and angry and do not look like they're welcoming. So what does Warner do with his first response? He doesn't say hello, doesn't offer him coffee. He draws his revolver and fires, shoots Constable Martinez, who drops dead instantly. Now the crowd of the mob that's deputized, they don't sit there and compliment him and say, hey, thanks for shooting our guy. They don't say that at all. They respond with opening fire from their own weapons. And they shoot and kill old Warner there in the doorway, which he just answered and killed someone himself in. Now, Jack Gillum and Ben Horrell are inside this thinly walled house, okay? Now I'm going to tell you from personal experience, if you're in a thinly walled house and bullets are raining down in your direction, it's a highly motivating factor to want to leave. And so they do. Out the back windows they go and they start beating feet towards the Rio Bonita down there. They're only a few feet away from the river. They start running from the river. That's old Ben Horrell and Jack Gillum. They're running, trying to get away from that building and the shooting. They're running. They get a few steps away from the river, and who falls first is old Gillum, former lawman who has a few enemies here, and he's shot. He falls first. Ben Horrell makes it a few steps ahead. He's shot. He falls. Both men collapse to the ground because they're shot pretty good. They allegedly throw their revolvers and offer to surrender, that they need help because they've been shot, to which the response is very clear. Everyone finds out the next morning. They go down to the river, and what do they find? They find old Jack Gillum's body. He's been shot 13 times. The Horrell relative there, he's shot 9 times. Both men point blank executed by the river, a few steps behind you down there. Okay, so violence came off in here. As one observer, when they moved to Lincoln, Dr. Ely, he said it's a wonderful place to live in Lincoln, but few people die of natural causes because there's simply too much lead in the air, which is accurate. Right across the street from us behind me is the Convento. That used to be an important gathering spot for the town. It was a large community building. They held court there. It was also a place to drink and celebrate. So that's what's going on. About 3 weeks after the murder of the Horrell and his buddies, they got killed on December 1st. By December 20th, 1873, they respond and they ride into town here. They stop off at one of their friends' house, tell them that they're here for trouble. They say, well, hey, everybody's gathered in town at the Convento because there's a wedding celebration going on. A wedding celebration, not a gunfight party, right? All right, someone still with me? Okay, just checking.
Alcohol and guns.
But there's alcohol involved.
That's right. That's right. Guns and alcohol, bad things happen. Hey, extra $5 for you. You see me after this. All right, so that's what they do. They come out right behind us. You see the Convento off here. Ian has a historical marker on the pathway there. Walking up into the building, that's exactly what they did. They're facing the same direction y'all did, and that's what they do. There's half a dozen of these guys, maybe up to 10, depending on the accounts you read. And they stand in front of this Convento, and they pull their weapons, and they empty their rifles, their shotguns, move to their pistols, empty their handguns into every door and window they can, giggle to themselves. Allegedly, they said, let's make them dance to our music, boys, and that's what they did when they start shooting. And did they run away after they shoot them? Nope. They calmly get on their horses, which are tied probably not far from where a few of you are standing right now. Get on their horses and ride out of town, and the Horrell War kicks off in an elevated level. Over 29 people are going to be killed in Lincoln County during the violence in the Horrell War alone. It's often overlooked at because of the Lincoln County War that happens afterward, but it is worth remembering that the Horrells started and planted a lot of seeds for the violence that was to come next, okay? All right, who's having a good time?
Yeah.
All right, any questions?
I wonder if they took that scene for the opening scenes in Tombstone.
That's a pretty good comparison. Yeah, I was thinking the same. Very good comparison, because it's just a small building for them to shoot to pieces, and that's what they did. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a few steps over that way. We're going to talk about the Convento one more time, okay?
Don't get hit, so I'll get wiped out by the...
By a car. Your shadow's in the way.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We're still going to talk about the Convento, so if you're looking at it, we're still going to talk about an awesome thing that happened here, or not so awesome, depending on point of view you have. But you're good. In the summer of 1875, there was a feisty individual that lived in the Lincoln area, known as Robert Casey. Lots of y'all have traveled by, maybe staying on or near property he once owned. He was a very vocal opponent of old L.G. Murphy as the political faction started to really gain a little bit more momentum here. So it is said that L.G. Murphy allegedly paid this guy to do away with Robert Casey. And old William Wilson is that individual. William Wilson worked for Robert Casey. And the two of them on this final morning have a breakfast at the Worley Hotel, to which they have a slight disagreement. Afterwards, both men go separate directions. Mr. Casey comes into Lincoln to do further business, and allegedly old William Wilson goes and procures his Henry rifle, to which he waits outside the Wortley Hotel. And when Robert Casey shows himself heading back towards his horse, which is tied up near the Wortley, old William Wilson doesn't wait for an invitation, no big sign. He simply opens fire with his repeater rifle, shoots Robert Casey, but Robert Casey tries to react and run. Robert Casey gets shot in his tuchus as he turns around this corner to try and get away from William Wilson. And allegedly he pulls his revolver at that point to try and defend himself. But he makes a bad move, and then he goes this way around the building, and William Wilson has just simply sidestepped. Like he's doing that. Is that a good sidestep? Yeah, okay, thank you. I've been practicing. So he sidesteps, shoots Robert Casey right in the face, to which Robert Casey dies hours later in a slow, painful way in a house nearby. William Wilson is promptly arrested, taken to jail, and he quickly becomes a problem prisoner. He even tries to make an escape, which fails because he gets shot up. He gets shot so badly that they postpone his execution and hanging date. Not very long though, because it's in early December 1875, and he is brought right here, right in front of this convento. Probably off to our right, off the convento, and where the travelers is today, right in there, the gathering spot. This is a bit empty because of the living situation. It was right here on the property in the emptiness where they kept their horses and animals, feed supplies. This was an empty field, which was easy for the town folks to gather round for this public execution of William Wilson, to which he steps up to the hangman's platform. He's given a chance to say his final words. He starts to speak, and he starts with kind of a half-mumbled apology for this death he's caused to Mr. Casey. He doesn't really quite take ownership of his responsibility, but he gives a half-hearted apology. But then he turns to the man standing on the hangman's platform just feet away from him. And that individual is L.G. Murphy. Now, if we take a little footnote to earlier story, it's likely L.G. Murphy paid old William Wilson to commit this deed. And if you had any doubt, you think about William Wilson's final words, and that's he steps to Murphy, who's right there. He says, "Now, Major, you're the one who got me into this and said you would get me out." He couldn't finish his word because old L.G. Murphy reaches over, strikes that switch, drops that hangman's noose. William Wilson falls, and he's hanged to his death for 9.5 minutes. If you think you're dead after hanging for 9.5 minutes, it's probably a safe bet, right? No one? Okay. When you mix guns and alcohol?
Bad thing.
Okay, somebody's still with me. That guy's shaking his head. He's getting angry back there. I'm watching. Okay. So, William Wilson has spoken his final word. Murphy has hit that switch, dropped it to hang for 9.5 minutes. Counting that extra half, 9.5. All right. His body is brought down, not too far behind me, near where that tree is. And the crowd is gathered out here because they've all gathered for this public execution. And so, amongst that crowd are men, women, children, animals. I want everyone represented. Okay? Everyone's there, except for one teenage woman who happens to have a curiosity about old William Wilson. What does he look like now that he's dead? Reasonable question for any teenage woman, right? So what does she do? She goes to that coffin, picks up that lid a little bit, and sees old William Wilson lying there. Anybody know what happened to William Wilson? He's still alive. He's still alive, that's right. So all this crowd around starts having a discussion. Well, we need to hang him again. Well, ironically, L.G. Murphy argues that the sentence has already been passed. You can't hang a man twice, which is a little convenient for him. But the argument doesn't last long because Casey has friends that are here watching this, and they promptly throw that noose back over the hangman's gallows into William Wilson's coffin, around William Wilson's neck, and they hoist him straight from coffin to the hangman's gallows once again. This time he hangs for over 20 minutes, and he is assuredly dead, and he is promptly wrapped with a rope still around his neck, packed up here and carried over to Tenney. Everybody, anyone drive through Tenney, New Mexico on your way here? Yeah. You see the big white former restaurant there? Only about 50 yards outside of that is where William Wilson's grave lies today. You can drive by any time and still see it. There's about half a dozen other graves with him there. And that's what happened to William Wilson, who was hanged twice right here in Lincoln, all right? Because he learned a valuable lesson. That's when you mix guns and alcohol.
Bad thing.
Bad things happen. All right, people still with me? Okay.
Well, did they leave the rope out?
There's trouble that continues in the Lincoln County War, but it's not gunfighters out here duking out, other than they may have bad feelings of animosity to each other, route warrants and accusations, and the one person continuing that fight against Dolan and his friends is old Houston Chapman. Anybody ever hear Houston Chapman? Yeah. All right, why do we like Houston Chapman?
We like him a lot.
He's a good guy.
He had a bad arm because he'd been shot as a kid.
That's right. That's right. He wasn't walking around here like he was Greg Louganis or is that a good Olympic athlete? I'm way old. Sorry. Anyway, yes, he was a wounded guy. He stuck out. In particular, this night in 1879, he has bad timing. All right, because the same night he's in town and has just ridden back into town from his long journey in court proceedings. Just across here, down pretty close to where we gathered this morning, where many people are staying, in the beautiful place that is the Ellis store, Ellis Place, whatever you want to call it nowadays. I don't know what the official name. What did I get wrong?
I don't know.
Okay, we'll call it the Ellis. So, these guys meet down at the Ellis store, and who's in that group? It's a couple of names you might recognize. Jimmy Dolan, Jesse Evans, Billy the Kid, likely Tom Follard, George Matthews, Billy Campbell. Billy Campbell's my favorite. I think you're a great leader, and this beautiful bald man you have are working on stuff with old William Wilson. He was a character. They call him Billy Wilson. So these guys meet down here with a very tense meeting. It's a famous line you read in your books where Jesse Evans says, "Well, let's just end it all and shoot them all, boys." Did I do good with that accent?
Yeah.
Let's practice it. Did I do the rifle too? Anyway, it's Jesse Evans. So Jesse Evans wants to start it with violence from the beginning, to which many credit Billy the Kid as being the smart aleck who kind of cuts the cheese, the expression of the intensity, and makes a little bit of breaking the tensions, a little bit of laughter and joking between people who fought against each other and have fought together on the same side, including Jesse Evans and the Kid. So they have this meeting, which is very tense, and somebody in this group says, "Let's just make the peace." And so they shake hands and agree that they're going to not shoot each other. No one's going to have to sleep with one eye open anymore. A little bit more reassurance and security and peace is established. So they start celebrating by that end of the town, drinking their way towards this end of the town. There's several stops in between. And so they're headed this way. And out in front of that group is old Billy Wilson, who is a troublemaker. Where's your buddy there? Josh, would you agree William Wilson was a troublemaker? There we go. I like confirmation. Also, when you mix guns and alcohol. Okay, you're still with me. Okay. So after making the peace between these tense parties, they start celebrating. Yes.
Is that guns alcohol thing the town motto?
That's just mine. It's so it keeps me knowing if anyone's still with me or if y'all are walking away. I know the signals. I can just drive in my car and run away myself. All right. I'll ease up. I bet. Also, when you mix guns and alcohol, just so you know. All right. So these two groups of men come right in here as the Kid, Dolan, Matthews, Wilson, Follard, other names you want to insert depending on the sources. Those guys are drinking, headed this way, and here comes Houston Chapman, who's headed right here to the house, which you can see, to which you got a drunk party of bad guys, right? And one guy wants to show off that he's a bad guy because there's other guys with notorious names around him. So old William Wilson, Billy Wilson, he steps up because he sees the one-armed lawyer who's also got his head wrapped because he's got terrible pain in his head that day. So he's walking around with a little bit of a limp, one arm missing, and his head wrapped like he's in the Mummy movie. And he's an easy victim for these guys, ready to take advantage of a weaker person, and particularly this guy who's being the enemy of their big boss, Jimmy Dolan. To which old Wilson steps up right here, and Houston Chapman stood right exactly where this tree is located to this day. Here's where William Wilson was. Excuse me. Chapman. Get him confused. Thank you. Give that guy an extra 5. He's on the page. Chapman's here, and old Billy Wilson steps up to him right here, and he says, "Hey, you need to dance. You're pretty silly looking, you need to dance for us." Now this lawyer, what's he gonna react to a cowboy who's out on the range all the time? Is he gonna adhere to his request? Or does he have the attitude like, "No, I'm not dancing for you drunk cowboy idiots"? Pretty much what he does. To which Wilson starts going, "Excuse me, we said dance." Pulls out his gun, points it right at him. Houston Chapman doesn't flinch. He ain't scared of no gun. He says, "I know who you are, why don't you step back? In fact, aren't one of you guys Dolan?" Which kind of agitates the group a little further, at least one side of him. And at that point, Campbell pulls back that hammer. He's got it pointed right at him. He says, "Yo, you're gonna dance. You're gonna dance now." And about that exact same moment, a man who's in this group of men watching this man standing here, old Jimmy Dolan, takes a little bit of a sidestep, simply raises his rifle a short distance, and fires. When he fires, at that exact same moment, the other man pulls the trigger right into the chest of Houston Chapman, and Houston Chapman drops right there where that tree is today, and he falls. Now up in his left breast pocket up here, he has a lot of legal paperwork for the stuff he's doing. So close that when that gunfire erupts into his chest, it burns and catches those papers on fire in his suit. Now that fire doesn't go right out, that fire continues for hours until the cavalry shows up into town. It's no big problem. Yes?
There's an alternate explanation in the paper. Jesse Evans pours alcohol on Chapman. He's still alive, and he lights it, and that's where the fire comes from.
I've
And
heard
also,
that.
you know, the reason Billy and Jesse were meeting is because they'd exchanged letters, and it agreed to meet at that particular time, at that particular place.
Yes, sir. That's yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Whether or not, whatever version you want to stick with, the end result is the same. Chapman is dead right here, and the rest of the group moves on through town to continue their drinking, which Billy the Kid takes advantage of one of those moments, and he himself escapes out of this area and leaves. And he later uses that as trying to offer testimony to the governor to help get himself out of trouble because he's witnessed this event. Okay? Just behind you is the Torrio, to which 99 out of 100 visitors think is Billy the Kid's old fort. It was not, but it's a pretty picture. Alright? But we think about violence did happen here, right over here. It's where old Dan Huff used to live. Dan Huff wasn't a huge notable figure. He was just a guy who did odd jobs around town. But Dan Huff was also the guy who mysteriously looked out his bedroom window. I think it was late May 1878, and goes to his bedroom window, and there's a dead body half buried right there in his yard. Might be worth looking into or excavating, because it's alleged that Dan Huff had a bad habit. He liked to visit ladies of the night. And I don't mean just singers, I mean they were a little overly friendly ladies. You with me still?
Yes, I am.
All right, I don't want no trouble. Seriously.
David, simmer down.
So, Dan Huff has this bad habit, to which there are different allegations and rumors of what happened, but it seems most likely that a relative of his wife found out about some of his bad habits that were common knowledge to everyone in the town. And so old Dan Huff, at the beginning of the 5-day battle in 1878, July, he starts feeling not so well and quickly perishes. And he's buried right behind this building, near where the Tunstall grave and the McSween graves are. In that same field, he's one of the dozen or so bodies that's mysteriously laying there. Now, it's also notable that one of the individuals burying in there was George Washington. Has anyone heard George Washington in Lincoln County War?
Oh, yes.
He's a guy who got credit for some things, probably didn't get credit for some things he should have. But he was a worker and a fighter on some occasions, but he was on the side of the McSweens. And so he is called to, with his buddy, to go bury old Dan Huff right behind here in a shallow grave that they've made. right? Now, it's only about 50 yards from the middle of the Torreon to where he was buried, according to the account. So they go to bury him only. There's a few of the old Dolan pals that are in the Torreon, occupying the Torreon at the time. And they see a couple of easy victims burying a corpse right there in plain sight, only 50 yards away at the most. And so they open fire. And old George Washington and his buddy, Severin Bates, I believe, they have to flee and run. But as they do, what they do with the body, they did not kindly bury it. They gave it a whole heave-ho, right? Toss that body, to which it lands sideways at a slant. His feet are closer to the ground than his head, and he's buried on his side, tossed in that open grave, and he's left there for several days. It's notable that if anyone thinks his wife was the one who poisoned him, it's not very likely, because for the next 2 days, she's out there with her children out at the grave mourning, and they will not leave the graveside. It's until the heavy fighting in the city starts becoming way more heavy that she's forced to leave mourning her husband. Now we're going to move on, and we're going to get into the froggy part of the Lincoln County War, right? Everyone's heard of Sheriff Brady? Yeah. All right, that's what we're going into next. So we only got a few steps till we go into Brady's death. It's also the last day of old Sheriff Brady, right? Anybody heard of Sheriff Brady? Yeah. All right. We also know that when you mix guns and alcohol,
bad things.
Okay, you're still with me. Good deal. All right, so on April 1st, 1878, the night before, a good, fire-happy, trigger-happy, more aggressive fighting portion of the regulators found, because McSween is supposed to show up in town himself, but he's a little bit behind him. So they spend the night here in the Tunstall store, and in the morning, they're up, getting ready, having some breakfast. While just across town, old Sheriff Brady has had his final breakfast over at the Morgan. After Brady has a quick bite of breakfast and starts walking, he makes a quick stop at Ham Mills' house and talks to Ham Mills' wife, because Ham Mills has long left town. Brady has a quick laugh with Ham Mills' wife, and then he runs to catch up with the rest of his deputies that are walking across town. And there's multiple theories on why they were coming here. Were they coming here to post notice about legal court action? Were they coming here to reiterate that the date had already been moved like it had been posted? Or were they likely coming here to ambush McSween when he come into town and arrest him? Because if you look at Sheriff Brady and the things that were found on his body, it's reported that handcuffs is one of those things. Don't think he was carrying him down because they were going to encourage McSween to ride into town. So with Sheriff Brady, his deputy George Hinman, you got John Long, a character. I think everybody will agree Long is a character, right? Troublemaker character. You got Long, you got Matthews, you got Pepin, and they're walking down the street. Now they're not walking in a solid line like they're in a choir. They're just scattered guys walking in conversation, not in a huge rush. They're just expecting maybe some excitement will happen in a short time. And so, as they stroll down through here, someone who's in the Tunstall store takes notice of them. And there's multiple theories. There's people who say that the regulators made a huge plan for this ambush. Okay? Don't think that that's possible, but there's theories for it. What's most likely is that someone, probably Washington or Bates or someone working outside, spots Brady coming with his deputies and goes inside and says, "Hey, Brady's coming down the street." Now with this trigger-happy group, there's not a lot of common sense, correct? These aren't the smart guys. Guys like Skurlock, Valkyrie, Brewer, those guys are not here. This is only the trigger-happy guys. Including old Robert Whitteman, who, as was mentioned, witnesses say he was carrying 2 gun belts, 2 pistols, and a rifle out in the back there. People said, well, if you weren't a part of it, what were you doing out there so heavily armed? And he said, well, I was just feeding Tunstall's dog. And they said, just feeding the dog? And he said, well, the dog was vicious. I'm saying a lot about Whitman. But this group of guys is hanging out. The word comes out that Brady's coming. And if you want to question the motives or the premeditation to it, it's a simple math problem. And I tell you, from someone who's been in multiple firefights, they didn't fire a shot until Brady got over there to where you can see that red fire hydrant peeking up off the ground. That's exactly where he shot and fell dead, right where that fire hydrant was. Okay, now that's a short distance, but it wasn't by guys with their 6 guns shooting like this. Did we get accent on that? Yeah. Okay, thank you. But it was most likely guys with their carbines and rifles, and they're sitting over this corral gate, which has got a plain view. There's rumors that it was up to a 10-foot wall on the side, which is most likely. They just draped themselves over that gate. Some will even claim that they opened the gate when they shot. Most likely they leaned over that front gate with their rifles and fired it. If you look at the distance up to where Brady was shot and where they were standing, it's about 70 steps, which is about 40 to 60 yards, depending on how far you step. That's where they fall. Hinman is shot. He allegedly cries out. So Ike Stockton supposedly comes running out with his hat dipped in the water so he can get to Hinman and help him. About that same moment, the kid comes out of this gate, as witnesses will state. There's also other testimony that says it wasn't just the kid who came out, it was Fred White, right? In Mills' new book, he brings up those witnesses' statements specifically. Is that Fred White steps out, not a huge distance running to kill the victim, but he steps out and he fires a few shots. And we know that because Ike Stockton tried to pick up Hinman, and the shots started raining down, and the fire was so heavy that he said, "Forget this, I'm out," and he left Hinman, which Hinman fell just a few feet away from Brady. And that's where the fight stopped. Only the kid ran out at that time. Some people say he was trying to get legal papers off of Sheriff Brady's body. Some people say he was trying to get the weapon that Brady was carrying. Both arguments have good argument reasons, but it's up to you which one you want to cling to. Most likely what I think is that he came out to get that rifle, maybe just as an extra stab into Brady or as an extra victory lap he could take, saying that he had Brady's rifle. Or maybe he was after the legal papers that could easily be replaced a few days later. It's likely he was trying to pick up that weapon. He goes to pick up that weapon, and that's when it's said that old Deputy George Matthews is sitting right across the street from us. If you look at where that red truck is, just over my shoulder, between that red truck and that tree is where the Cisnero house was. That's where Matthews and Pepin had run into to seek shelter. And it's likely that's where Matthews, as it's claimed, fires that shot. Some people have this traumatic shootout where Billy the Kid is shaped like this, and behind him is Fred Wade. No, wait, Jim French. Excuse me. I think it was that. French. They're posed in this weird YMCA pose, and they're both shot together, which I don't think that's possible. Someone who's been through about 10 years of combat, I can tell you, I've never seen it. Never happened. Maybe it happened on that day, and that's one testimony we have. Don't think it happened. It's likely that Billy the Kid gets nicked on his inner thigh. Gets a slight graze. He decides it's time to beat feet and get out of there, and off he goes. And he runs back to this corral, which is a short distance away. That's where the rest of the regulators and those back there are starting to get ready to get out of there. And it's at this time they start to come out of that gate and make their escape through town, only a few short minutes after the shooting has started. And that's when it's reported that Long fires from the Torreon and he hits French in the side. Now for Billy the Kid to be shot in his upper inner thigh, and French to be shot up here in his side would be a strange ricochet from one bullet. It may have happened, but not likely. Alright? As they start to leave, French is wounded, to which he has to come back. The tale is twisted that it may have been the kid who hid under the floor here. We don't know. It's most likely it was French who had to duck down here and hide to get some medical treatment, because we have blood trails that the deputies and the soldiers have found after that when they're searching. That gives a hint that someone is wounded, to which old Matthews thinks he's gut shot Billy the Kid. He's very excited about it. Turns out that didn't happen for him. And if you think it was traumatic wounds, look at what happens a few days later with old Buckshot Roberts, and you have the kid himself running face to face to try and get close to old Buckshot. And if he's dramatically shot through his thigh, I don't think the kid is running through that shooting grounds. If you've been on the exact grounds near where Buckshot Roberts and Dick Brewer are buried today, you can see it's a little different. So I don't think the kid was running up the hill. It's most likely it was Jim French who was wounded. Okay? There is a story that many tell. The kid was hit under the floorboards. Amelia Bolton Church, she testifies in her autobiographically twisted kind of slant point of view. She thinks it's the kid who escapes the town. And she's very specific and passionate about where he stops on the hill just across from the Ella store where many of y'all stood this morning. And that's where he notices the bullets are falling too short and he's out of range. And it's alleged that he dips his hat, tells the town goodbye and rides off. Whether you believe that version or whether you think it's likely Jim French, it's completely up to you. If you look at the sun marks on the building and the shape of the building, it's likely that it was just past where that second window was. It's where the fence ran, came out to the wall. It runs kind of parallel to where this alley is now. You can go through right where they stood and escape from when they shot Sheriff Brady. Okay? Everybody have a good time?
Well, sir,
All right, so
I got a point.
Yes.
Actually, who saw the shots? Because it makes sense they were hiding themselves. Brady's son says they shot through portholes in the wall. First person account.
Is his definition of portholes a firing position, which looked like it was between the wall? Because what we're saying is that they went and dug holes into the wall.
The Adobe wall
before
was
they
10
shot.
feet tall, right?
That's right.
They were in the wall. Portholes in the wall. It's his words.
So what I'm trying to understand is what you're saying is that they knew that they were going to kill Brady and that they went and prepared it by carving holes into the wall they were going to shoot through?
Well, someone carved them.
Maybe they have, but as someone who's
Makes
been
sense
in
they
multiple
would have.
combat, I've
But-
never seen that happen.
Well,
so that would
I
be
mean,
a new
it's hard to dispute Brady's son.
And that's one. Why don't we talk about the other witnesses? There's,
Well, what other witnesses besides that actually saw the shooting?
what, you want to sit down and do the whole thing here, or are we on a clock so
No,
everyone
because
can
I
do it?
found the other person account.
I'll happily sit down and talk with you after that. But we're standing right here, and everyone thinks of the McSween house, right? Yes. That one stood right there. We're going to get into that in just a minute. But while we're killing for a few minutes of that map getting here, we talked about old George Washington, right? Mentioned George Washington. He helped bury that body. Old Dan Huff threw him in all slanted. Old George Washington was a good guy, right? McSween worker, helpful guy. Wow, that's every loud part of him. 1 year after the big killing, July 1878, we're talking about 1879 now. Washington, who in 1879, he's sitting right here in the ruins where the McSween house used to stand. Old George Washington is out carrying his rifle. He's walking with his wife and their infant child. And they're walking through here, and George Washington allegedly sees a stray dog, to which he takes a shot at with his rifle. Shot hits not the dog, hits his wife and his infant child. They die right here on the ruins of the McSween house, which everyone thinks, oh, poor George Washington, what a tragic accident, right? Didn't mean to shoot his wife and kid. Only about a year and change later, turns out old George Washington not forcibly eloped, but probably he had an overbearing influence on eloping with the Baca daughter. Takes off, him and his buddy take off with her. They don't make it far till a posse from Lincoln hunts him down. George Washington and his poor Stephen buddy are taken right over there near where the Houston Chapman tree we just passed, and he was hanged to death right there. No monument is left for George Washington, but he's worth remembering. Also, don't shoot guns around your wife and children, especially if you got alcohol, right? Bad things happen. Okay, everybody got a map?
Yeah.
All right, what are we looking at? The McSween house. Good answer. Thank you. All right. Right down here's the McSween house, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to walk down a little ways and we're going to walk in the footsteps that people walked when they escaped, all right? All right, it's a short walk, so let's go. Good idea where that fence went. Maybe off by a couple inches. But look at the Google Earth pictures, satellite pictures, and you can see the evidence. It's most likely that there was a part of the wall that went here, and then it joined into the rest of the gate, which is known to be wooden. You see it written as wooden on many of the maps and accounts. This is where it was, okay? Now, at the beginning of the 5-day battle, you got the regulators that split into a couple of groups. You got people down where we're staying at one bed and breakfast here. We got people down at the Montano store. Then we got a group that includes Billy the Kid that is here at the McSween house, and this is where it stood. Okay? Now you think of the McSween house, it's not a huge mansion, but it was a U-shaped structure. Let's see if I can do it good with my arms. It's U-shaped, like you're facing it like it's a U. All right? So when you think of the exit, if you're facing the U, everyone exited from this side right here. Okay? If you want to know exactly where that door was that they walked out of, look at the glass right here that you can see in this mini house right here. You see the glass with the little dangly thing on it? Right where that glass is, the middle line that goes through it, right there is where that door was that they escaped out of, where they stepped out into a hailfire of bullets and enemies. Okay, but while they're trapped in the house, the posse doesn't just sit there twiddling their thumbs. There's lots of gunfire that goes on. Testimony says that there's up to 2,000 rounds that were fired just in this area alone. 2,000 bullets is a lot, okay? Anybody got a gun with bullets? Here's an example if you want to pass it around. 2,000 of these went hailing down to everybody right here, especially while they tried to escape. And that's what they did. But before they escaped, in the days that are prior, the posse doesn't just sit there with their hands idle. By that final day, they realize that this is the day the army is here. We've got to back up, start chasing the regulators out of other part of town, to which all that's left the last afternoon is the people trapped in the McSween house, and there's 3 regulators in the back of the Thompson store. That's all that's left. Now, the posse realizes that they've got everybody trapped in one house, so most logical move is to set fire to that house and chase them out, or even better, just burn them all up and they won't have anything to deal with. And that's what they do. Now, there's different reports, the testimony you want to take, but the overall view is that Deputy Long, who we've mentioned, all right, a guy by the name of the Dummy, who is a guy who faked that he was deaf and dumb, but could talk and speak and hear everything. Seemed like he was here for vengeance in Lincoln, but that's another story. And you got Powell, Deputy Powell. Now, some say that Powell later in the afternoon comes walking up. It just happens to run into a hail of bullets into a porta potty. If that's the version you want to take, that's up to you. I don't know who joins late into a porta potty, but that's possible. What we do know is that when Long and the Dummy are setting fire back here, that the kid and other people see them trying to do that, so they open fire, and so these guys have to run. Now the Dummy has got some sympathy because of his afflictions. He may have known somebody or met them before, but for some reason they don't unload focused on the Dummy. They focus on Long and Powell, if you believe that Powell account as well. So Powell and Long are forced to go into the McSween outhouse, which is right in there. If you go in a big circle there, green shirt, like you're a tornado, it's right in there. That's where the McSween outhouse was. If you look at how the drainage goes down, follow the evidence, it'll tell you that right there where the McSween Cooper was. All right, that's pretty fancy. You like that, Cooper? Okay. Right, so there they are. They go in about 1 or 2 in the afternoon that day, and they do not get out until after 9 p.m. that evening during the big escape. Now, this happens. These guys have this trouble starting a fire, but they are able to start on the other side of the U, on this side right here, on the McSween side. They're able to start the fire successfully, and so it burns. It burns in the shape of the U that the building is. It burns here first. It burns down. They're trying to move the piano as they can as they move the Alright? It starts to become real that if they stay in there, they're going to burn up. They're likely to be shot to death. McSween is supposed to be a leader in this point. He's a more educated man, supposed to be a bigwig in this operation. What is he doing at this time? He has no plan for escape. Witnesses say he's in the corner with his wife, with his head in his hands, mumbling to himself, clinging to his Bible, likely because he knows what's coming for him, as we all should when that time comes. So, time is running out. Only the kid, everyone knows this, Billy the Kid, right? I thought you were going to say Mr. the Kid. That would have been cool. Anyway, Billy the Kid comes up with the idea that's obvious, that somebody's got to make a break for it. We've got to get out of here. He tries to shake some attention into McSween. McSween doesn't go, hey, thanks for the attention. Let's leave this plan to be successful. No, McSween is still distraught and panicking and in fear. As happens in combat. So, the kid and his guys make sure everything's loaded, and they step into this last room that has burned its way. So the U has burned down and across and burning up until they're in this final room. Right there, pretty much in that courtyard that's fenced in, standing right there with the flames coming, know the time is coming. They check their weapons. First group steps out, and that's Billy the Kid, Jim Freeman, Jose Chavez, Harvey Morris, Tom Folliard. A lot of people like to call him O Folliard. It's Folliard. All right? They're the five that step out and go first, and so they do. Now, there's not some big plan of tactics where we're going to be a distraction force and run out. Simply, they knew they had to get out, and their best way was to break and go two different directions. If you look at how they exited and the timing, that's what they did. Only the kid and his group break through. They make it about 9 or 10 steps. Harvey Morris is shot right near the gate. So you count off 10 steps from that place over to here, so right in here, likely where Morris fell, shot dead. There's reports that Folliard tried to reach down for him, but he gets winged in his shoulder a little bit, which takes away his motivation, and so he's ready to be beat. And so they go pouring out. The kid, Chavez, they're trying to move because they know there's safety with the regulators across at the Tunstall store. They're not running to be a big sacrificial distraction. They're trying to get to other people to help them stay in the fight. And that's what they do, only with 2,000 some odd bullets raining down in this small courtyard you can see now, even though it was a little bigger back then. Still a lot of bullets in a concentrated place. And you're happy to leave once that hell starts raining down you. Excuse all my language. A lot of lead makes you move to where you don't go, well, I'm supposed to go to this plan and make a left and then turn right and dance. You don't do that. You go, oh crap, I'm about to die. So you get shot at enough. They just turn simply and go towards the river. No, they didn't message anyone. They ran to the river to survive. To which the guys in the Tunstall store back there are shooting, trying to help them, and they realize that their buddies are leaving and it's time to go, and they try and escape at that same time too, going over the back of the Tunstall Corral wall. Now while this is going on, it's the same time McSween and his buddies step out of the door, and they try and go straight out that back. Now there was a chicken shack right out here. If you look right behind you there, you can imagine where it was, because the gate, if you look on your map, it'll show you on your map. Look on your map, it'll show you a good representation of right where everything was. So McSween and his group try and come in. Now as they're making that escape, the gunfire rains down on there. It's worth noting that some reports have a guy by the name of Cullen, a guy by the name of Bowers, have them both dying in the McSween house. Bowers burned to death in that last room. If you read all the reports, he was left to die there. Other reports say Cullens may have survived, but there's lots of reports that have Cullens buried in the basement right next to where we live with no mark right where it stands. Sorry, we're not living there. So they break out, they make their escape. McSween fails because right at that north wall is Wallace Ollinger. You got a Beckwith, the Jones. You got several tough deputies that are standing there and they're ready to take that surrender. Beckwith stands up and says, I won't kill you. I'm representing the law. We have warrants to surrender. So he steps in. So we're in this small area. If you look from that wall to that white fence, that's the furthest they could have possibly been. So it's a close range fight when the deputies step into that yard. Now there are reports that the dummy was the first one to get up in the fighting. It depends on what report you take. It seems like the dummy may have been in it. Whoever it was that stepped up close to McSween and Beckwith, there's questions that it could have been a Jones boy who the Beckwiths had problems. Because if you look on the wounds in Beckwith's body, he shot through the hand and his head. Now does it seem like to you he was like, hey, you put your gun down, he didn't do that. It seems like he was like, hey, don't shoot, we're trying to take surrender. And he got himself shot and killed. That happened so fast, his body collapses. McSween is shot, allegedly even by Wallace Ollinger, some reports say. He's shot right there so fast he falls on top of Beckwith's body. And two more people are killed with him. Zamora, Romero, they're in the chicken house trying to hide. There's reports that say They had to knock a hole in the wall and shoot him through there. Other people were wounded and escaped. One guy is laying right where you stand, sir. So Inyo Salazar, who's the youngest of the regulators. It's like 14 and a half when it goes out. He's shot, wounded severely. He's left while these deputies start celebrating this huge victory and looking at the bodies they've caused. Someone steps over to old Inyo Salazar, gives him a kick and notices he's still breathing. Probably he lets out a little moan. And they go, hey, we should shoot him. So he reaches for his gun, only it's alleged to be John Kinney, maybe a different bad guy you want to insert from the merchant side. Says, hey, don't waste a bullet on him, let him just bleed out. And so they do. They decide what's more important than saving someone is drinking. So when we mix guns with alcohol, okay, still 3 people with me, all right, I like it. So that's how this kind of closes out. Most of the regulators that are in town have been chased out. They all cross the river. Some exchange a few shots as they get away, but they go over the hills and try and get away. And this town is left with George Washington, Bates, forced to play fiddles and entertain these guys, pretty much at gunpoint. And the rest of the town kind of has to sit and watch this tragedy and watch the fire as it burns out, smell the corpses, smell the gunpowder, feel the tension, and that's how the 5-day battle closes out here in Lincoln. Right here on this exact spot. I encourage you to look at there and look right where that door facing out would have been. And then look at how far they had to run under heavy bullets. That puts things in perspective. Everybody thinks it's the end of Young Guns, right? Where he jumps out through the second story, Trump treasure thing, and he goes shooting like this. Didn't happen like that. That would have been cool, but it didn't go like that. They were running for their lives. That was any huge revenge plan in store, okay? Take a look, glance around here, see some things before we move on. If you have any questions, hit me up. Or the other author, we can argue it out for you. All right. I think we've chased away a couple of people, so we still got stragglers. I like that. Everyone's still present at the end, I count. All right, this is the courthouse. The old Lincoln County Courthouse, which everyone comes to marvel and see the museum and the location of a lot of feisty things. The feisty things happened before the famous escape of Billy the Kid. For instance, old Lion Filipowski was a guy here who was drinking a little too much in the Murphy Saloon portion. Got into it with a guy by the name of Burns, who was the bartender. So he tells Burns, well, you better get a gun, I'll be waiting outside for you. To which he does. And Burns doesn't sit there and twiddle his thumbs. He says, self, better get a gun, and he does. So when he comes around the corner, old Filipowski opens with 3-4 shots at him. Because he's drunk, he misses all of them. And Burns takes one shot, shoots and kills him. It's a quick legal action to where they all decide, well, that was obviously self-defense. You killed the guy who was trying to kill you. Which Burns promptly leaves the next day and goes back home to New York City, where he said it was much safer. Other things happen here. We talk about old Doc Scurlock. That's a name we know. Doc Scurlock was in the building just outside of here with his buddy, Mike Harkins. And they're marveling at this new self-cocking revolver, double-action revolver that he's gotten. And they're passing the revolver back and forth, passing that bottle back and forth. And when he mixed guns and alcohol, still with me, all right. And that's what happens. The gun accidentally goes off, hits Harkins, kills him instantly, with Scurlock standing there right on the grounds outside of the courthouse today. Now, that wasn't the only incident that happened here. There was a guy by the name of Jaramillo, who was a young man who worked for Dolan. And Jaramillo had a wife who was a little bit younger, in her teens. And he finds out that old George Pepin, George Pepin's a name we might recognize, George Pepin has been having inappropriate conversations with this much younger woman. and some accuse that he's having an affair with this much younger woman. To which Jaramillo, the husband, says to himself, I'm not taking this from Dolan, I'm going to go kill Dolan. So he goes right into a building outside of here, probably the same building that Godfrey Goss stepped out of during Billy the Kid's famous escape. He goes into that building to see Jaramillo, and Dolan sees him, to which Jaramillo allegedly comes at him with a knife and tries to stab him, to which Dolan is forced to point-blank range shoot him 4 times with his revolver, kills him right here on the grounds of the courthouse. No charges happen to Dolan. It's easily dismissed because he was defending himself. Footnote to that story, George Pepin married Jaramillo's widow within a few weeks later. Just random coincidence.
Convenient.
It's a coincidence.
He was protecting her.
Could be.
Widow.
Could be.
Yeah.
All right, we think of legal hangings. There was legal hangings that the state conducted here. There's one guy in 1896 who was being sentenced to hang, and his name was John James. John James is marched out here out back to the gallows, given his chance for his final words, to which he has none to say. So they go to move the hood over his head, and he starts to talk, so they remove the head. He only says these words, "Goodbye, boys. God bless you all." They put the hood over his head and hang him to death right here on the grounds just behind the building. A man who was one of the people watching this hanging from the outbuilding, the same outbuilding that they were using as a makeshift jail at that time. That same man was taken himself a few months later, and after witnessing the hanging on the property, he did the exact same thing, and he himself was hanged to death on this property. There was a troublesome soldier in 1895 who was getting into some shenanigans, Fort Stanton, to where Fort Stanton says, hey, we got to get him somewhere safe. They move him from Fort Stanton to Lincoln. Huge distance, right? Not so big, because that night, a whole bunch of soldiers from Fort Stanton come to the jail, bust open the jail door, let several other prisoners free, seek out the one soldier that caused them the trouble, take him to the nearest tree, tie him up by his neck, and hang him. Only they're watching him die, suffocate. It's taking too long, so they all draw their revolvers and start shooting at him until he's just swinging through the air by his neck, all shot to pieces and killed here on the grounds of the courthouse. All right, but we think of the courthouse for its most famous escape, right? And that's Billy the Kid's last escape. Anybody heard of that? All right, good. There's like 4. There's more. The crowd's doubling. I like that. All right, so April 28th, 1881, Billy the Kid is being held, and if you look right up here in that northeast window that's facing this tree, right across from it, that's the room where Billy the Kid was being held, right up there in that northeast window. And who's watching him? Deputy Bell. About supper time, who's the first to go to supper? Ain't the friendly guard, right? It's the greedy guard, Ollinger, to which he promptly marches his other prisoners, which is about 5 of the guys. He takes them right over there to the Wortley. You can see where the Wortley is today. They go over there and start eating. And it is reported by credible sources that he was having roast beef. Only credible thing I've ever found about Bob Ollinger. He liked roast beef, so we'll take that. One victory is still a victory. So Ollinger's got about 5 guys in there. He's happily eating his grub. And about that time, the kid from that window has watched Ollinger and his prisoners go into the Wortley, and he seizes his moment. It's told that he asks to go to the outhouse, which is down those stairs, which you'll go up when you go up there. He goes down those stairs, out that back door, out into the yard there where the outhouse was. Quick trip to the outhouse. Some say he acquired a gun, right? Don't think that's possible, because that was also a public restroom. Anybody could have been using that outhouse, including at least 9 people who were on the premises at that time. So if they were hiding a gun there, there was a good hiding. Don't know if that's how he got the gun. That's up to you to decide. What we do know is that the kid tells Meadows, John Meadows, who writes about it, tells him what the kid said exactly, and that's that the kid says when he's going up these stairs, the same stairs you'll go, it's at the top, he makes a move. Some say he slips the wrist out of his shackles. It's possible he could have just used his arms with the shackles. And he goes and starts striking Bell in the head. There's wounds on Bell found later. There's gashes and cuts in his head from those shackles striking him. While he's being hit in the head, the kid grabs a gun. All right? Is it is it Bell's gun that he's got on his hip? Possible. It's also possible that a lot of Old West guys carried what is known as a second gun, a hideaway gun, which would have been a smaller, quicker to get gun. That could have been possible. But either way, at the top of those stairways, top of that stairway is where the kid makes a move, and he wrestles with Bell, and they fight. And there's a shot as the kid acquires that pistol and fires it at Bell. And you can look at the top of that stairway, and I'm sure you've seen this stuff on the internet, but Bell is shot from right to left, right across the top of his chest, meaning that he was either at the top stair or pretty close to when he's fighting for that gun. Now, when that gunshot goes off into Bell, he doesn't die and collapse instantly. It's most likely he falls at the top of that stairway, at least from his armpits up, because if you look at that stairway before you go up there and you're walking in the floor below it, look up. Before you walk up those stairs, you can look up to this day in the ceiling. You can see the mop water and soap water and blood stains from where Bell bled profusely at the top of that stairway. It wasn't just a quick cut and he walked away. He was bleeding, he was shot good, blood was pouring everywhere, to which we know that even the next sheriff's wife for years is scraping blood stains and trying to clean blood stains off that stairway. I bet on a wet and rainy day with the right climate, you could probably still see those stains in the wall if you look closely. But for sure you can look up before you walk up that stairway and see at the top where Bell fell. And so the kid gets a gun. From the second that bullet fires, he has 60 seconds. All right, set your timer on your phone. He has 1 minute from the time Ollinger hears that gunshot to where he can expect Ollinger to be here. And that's what happens. Ollinger is said to have been eating his roast. Is that too much country accent on that? He's eating his roast, and it's alleged he stands up and says, Bell has shot the kid. That's what he thinks. He thinks Bell has shot him. So Ollinger doesn't run across the street going, oh, I'm going to save him. Ollinger tells those guys to stay up front, and he starts moving with a purpose this direction. Now, right where we're standing right in here, there was a corral, and it would have been fenced. All right? Now, as Ollinger's moving this direction towards this fencing of the corral on the back side of the building, Bell has slid down that stairway he was wounded in. We know from bloodstains that are left there that Bell slides down those stairs, somehow lands on his feet, comes to senses or has enough panic in his body. He gets to his feet and he starts to step towards that door, to which he busts out that back door. And old Godfrey Goss, who's a groundskeeper at that time, is standing there smoking his pipe, just conveniently at that exact moment. He's lighting his pipe, and he hears the gunshot and the scuffle, and he hears footsteps, and out that door comes Bell. Bell walks out right to him, collapses right at his feet, to where Goss allegedly cradles his head, lays his head to the ground, and then goes, you know what, Self, I've got to tell Ollinger that the kid has just killed Bell. And that's what he does. So he starts moving with a purpose. He goes to that back corral gate and starts to come in the corral this side. He's coming in from the south while Ollinger's coming in from the north, and they're coming right here at the exact same moment. Now, in that minute, while Ollinger is moving, the kid is upstairs. Now, he's an experienced gunman. He's been in more than one gunfight at this point. So he realizes, hey, Self, I don't need to just grab one shotgun. Witnesses will state later that they see him out on the balcony later. He's got at least one pistol, he's got some sort of ammo belt, and he's got at least a Winchester and a shotgun. Ooh, that looks good. I got sidetracked with the coffee. So, if you think about an experienced gunman, knowing that trouble is coming his way, and it's likely he will have to make a final stand, probably with gunfire, so he comes well armed, and he comes rushing to this northeast window. And about that time is about the time Goss is coming in from that same corral fence, and Ollinger is crossing this same corral fence on this side, and they're moving in. And from witness statements we know It's only a few steps from the Ellis door, which is that white doorway behind us right there. It's only a few steps outside that door. You look at the marker where Ollinger's marker is today. It's misspelled, but it's still there. Ollinger gets right there. Goss is only a few steps away from him. Goss himself says that the kid doesn't hang out that window saying yeehaw or hey Bob. He doesn't do anything like that. He simply steps up and fires. And he empties one barrel. It's a double barrel shotgun, right? Everybody often states it's 2 shots with the shotgun, but it's not, it's 1, because Ollinger's dead, he's shot, but old Godfrey Goss doesn't say, well self, old Billy, my buddy, has just shot both barrels, so I'm safe. He's got to reload. That doesn't happen. Godfrey Goss says, hey, I'm next. So he starts to beat feet and runs south back where he came from, to which the kid calls out, hey Goss, I'm not going to shoot you, I don't want no trouble, as long as no one causes any trouble. Can you throw me up something to help me break these chains? Which Goss is able to find a small mining tool, depending on the narration you want to take. It wasn't a huge pickaxe, it was likely something small. It's thrown up into the window, allegedly. Goss says that. He throws it up to the kid. And then the kid says, go fetch a horse, which Goss goes hunting for a horse, the closest horse he can find, right? Preferably a horse with no rider, this is less trouble. So Godfrey Goss is out looking for that horse. About that time, the kid comes out up to the balcony. All right, there wasn't a stairway on this side. There was on the other side, but there was just a balcony, which he steps out. And he comes out and witnesses see him. He's got a rifle, that shotgun, at least 1 pistol, if not 2. He comes out on that balcony, looks down, and he sees lying there old Bob Ollinger still there. Now, he hates Bob Ollinger. These guys have a grudge. So the kid raises that other barrel of that double barrel shotgun up and fires the second shot. There is so many witnesses that confirm this, but it's often overlooked for story's convenience. It's 2 separate shots the kid gives. And he fires that second shot right up there, and then he starts smacking that old Whitney double barrel shotgun into the railing until he cracks part of its stock, makes it look brokenish, tosses it down towards Ollinger's body, which is right there. Then the kid makes a short speech. He's got his rifle and his guns, everybody can see. He says he's not here to cause trouble as long as no one causes any harm to him. There won't be any harm, he just wants to get away. Does any of the town react? No, they stand there sipping on mojitos or a latte or whatever they're doing. They're just standing here watching this drama unfold. And so, for about 1 hour, the kid is working on those chains on his feet. Goss is working on catching a horse. He catches that horse, hollers up to the kid that he's got it. About that time, the kid figures it's time to get going. Even if I don't have both shackles off, at least they're broken enough for me to ride. And he does. He comes out, carrying a rifle down, pistols in the extra cartridge belt. Right here is where they're holding this horse. So he walks up. It's alleged that he gives a comment to Ollinger's body like, you're not going to round me up no more, which is true, because he's dead. And I thank you for the 2 people that laughed. Okay, write that down. So he goes to get on the horse. Now, my dear friend Drew Gomer was very passionate about this story, and it's often overlooked in the narration in a lot of books, is that when the kid goes to get on his horse and escape in front of people, that horse reacts, whether it kicks strongly or bucks, but for some reason the kid goes flying off to the ground right here in front of a crowd watching the most deadly gunfighter in OS history escape, only he gets thrown off a horse in front of God and everybody. So, to which the kid looks up and says, hey, first guy he sees, you go fetch that horse. And that guy is a guy by the name of Dunley. He's here from Tularosa. And Dunley don't want no trouble. He says, hey, I'm on trial for murder. I don't think this is going to help. And to which the kid just raised his rifle like this and said, just tell him I made you do it. And Nunley said, I love horses, especially that one. Let me go get it. And he promptly does. Only when he helps the kid get back on the horse, he notices, and again, this is a passionate story by my dear friend, he notices that the kid is carrying his Winchester. And so he makes a comment like, so now you're going to steal my Winchester too? And alleged by witnesses, the kid says, okay. So he jumps back off the horse, strolls back past these dead bodies he's caused, back upstairs, rearms himself, and comes back down. To which the crowd there is standing around tensely going, who's that going to be next? I don't know. And the tension is there. No one claims it. The kid jumps on his horse without any trouble and rides west into the sunny New Mexico sun as if some huge cinematographer wanted a perfect ending for that movie. And that is, till you read the footnotes about the kid's demise. As far as our history in Lincoln, that's where he rode free and escaped right here and stood right here for his last time in Lincoln. All right. Thank y'all for sitting and listening to my shenanigans all day, not throwing any rocks. Everybody who had a good answer, please see me afterwards. I'll give you $1. Those who had a bad answer, please see the people hosting the event and thank them for how terrible I did, and we'll call it a day. All right, but seriously, thank you guys. I hope y'all have fun. Walk these steps. Any questions y'all have, come hit me up, please.